Hi, I'm Patty Blinderman, and as an ADHD coach, I'm here to help you thrive with ADHD. For more support, I invite you to check out my website, ADHD-Friendly.com. This week, we're going to be celebrating a social win.
Woo!
I know, I love a social win. I'm going to update my spending, and then I'm going to share an ADHD-friendly tip as well as what I purchased this week. And then we'll dive into our main topic, which is social skills for adults with ADHD. I know, who can't use a little social support? Plus, of course, I'll highlight my book for the week. So let's jump in and make this week a little more ADHD friendly. So this is episode 183, and I am kicking it off with a social win. I was really focused on social connections and building my social strength, muscles, if you will, since the end of the pandemic coming out. And I've really not been as intentional about it because I feel like I really benefited from that ongoing focus.
Yeah.
And so this year I don't actually have a specific social goal where I'm, looking for 25 social wins in 2025.
Yeah.
We'll see if that ends up being a mistake or not, because sometimes when I take my focus off something, it really does tend to fall in the back burner and become something I need to consciously put back in place. But right now it's still moving along at a good pace. So my social win is kind of from a sad thing. So I told you that my knit shop had a going out of business sale. It was closing because the owner's husband sadly very suddenly passed away. And the owner threw a little gathering, a little dinner for us at the shop after the last weekend sale. And that was last week. And so we all went, and it was just so, because every week, the shop had less and less things in it. It was looking different every time. But this time when I went in, there was nothing. There was just the empty cubbies and the empty shelving, but no knitting paraphernalia whatsoever, not a single ball of yarn in view. But there was a lovely table set up and really pretty tablecloth, like she can set a table. And it was just really, really pretty and thoughtful. And it was so much more, I thought we'd be standing. It's like, just because I'm like, where are we going to sit? Everything's going to be gone. So it was really, really very lovely. And so my celebration, because there was no doubt I was going, was that number one, I have always felt very fortunate and very grateful to be included in this very tight-knit group of members within the knitting community of the Elgin Elgin Knit Works shop. And a lot of times when I had been there for other events, sometimes I felt like an outsider. I felt like, oh my gosh, am I really worthy? Because these people have known each other, a lot of them over a decade. And have always been like long-term knitters. And like, I was still like I don't know how to pick out yarn, and I don't know the difference between this and this. And I just feel like such a newbie on a lot of things. So my celebration is that I went and I really felt like I belonged. I did not feel out of place for 1 minute. I did not get in my head. I felt very appreciative of everybody that I've gotten to know over the years there. And I just felt really at home and comfortable and happy to be a part of such a wonderful group of human beings. And they gave us little Linda and Betsy, the mom and daughter owners, gave us these little plants. They had them throughout the center of the table and a line. You could pick what you wanted. And I picked this one, and they gave us a little pick of sheep. So I put my little sheep in the plant to kind of hang out and graze to remind me all the time. Because, my brain, I might forget where I got this one day. So I kept the little sheep in there. But this is an Easter cactus. Have you heard of this?
No.
That's why I picked it. They had violets too. And you guys, if you watch this podcast, know I kill a lot of plants. Not on purpose. I'm not mean to them. I just am not very good at consistency and knowing what they need and doing it well. So I thought, okay, I asked about, how hard is it to keep a violet alive? Like, just make sure you water down here. Don't touch the leaves. Don't get into it. And I was like, I'm taking one of those. Like cactus just sounds a little bit easier to not kill.
Totally.
So
need that much water.
I'm hoping, I don't know. So I bought this little pot. I'm transitioning to what I bought this week. I bought this little pot at Home Goods. I bought 2 of them, this one and a slightly larger one, that I replanted my aloe plant because my aloe plant really needed a bigger pot. So I did both of those over the weekend, and it was very sparkly to do it. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but the new pots really pulled me in, made it sparkly enough. So I have my beautiful Easter cactus that will always remind me of that connection that I I forged at the knit shop, and now I have two plants repotted that hopefully will continue to thrive. What else did I purchase this past week? I got a $20 gift card in the mail to Chewy.com.
Nice.
Most of the time when I get any kind of offer from Chewy, it is for new customers only. And I read all of the fine print and I was like, oh, this is because I haven't ordered from them in a long time. They want me back. So I was like, it had to be a $49 order to get the $20 off. But still, I was like, and of course, if you order that much, it's free shipping. So I was like, okay, this is probably worth looking into.
What'd you get?
I got 3 bags of the little 12-ounce bags of dog treats that I like because they're small. I have a German Shepherd and pugs. My pugs don't need big treats. Yeah, I try to be really mindful of what I give them because I don't want them to get, no, I don't want them to get fat.
Oh, yeah, too.
Because most people that have pugs have really big dogs, like they're much heavier than they're supposed to be. So I try really careful to, they just get, they're pre-measured. I mezzure their food in measuring scoops. So like they're very, they get what they get.
Mindful.
So it's the only treat they get. And usually even like the itty bitty treats I break in half. They don't care. I'm like, they're perfectly happy getting a treat. So
doesn't take much.
So I get these little, I think they're called fruitables or something. I forget, but they're tiny little like flour. They're like this big. And I break them in half for the pugs and the German Shepherd gets a full one. But they were, for the price that I think they were $6.99 each for those bags, which is a really good deal.
Yeah.
So I got 3 of those, and then I got a thing of the chew toys that they're all obsessed with, and it was like a kit of them, and they're always expensive, so I forget, but the price ended up being $50 and like 53 cents. So I was just over that spending limit, which was perfect.
20%.
And when I went to order them, I apparently had a $15 gift card in there from something. I don't know what. I don't remember, but
so you got to use both?
I got to use both.
Nice.
And it brought it down to $19 out the door for all of these chew toys, like literally a box of chew toys. I know. I was like, this is exciting. So you got me, Chewy. I came back and it was a great feeling. So
loyal customer.
Oh my gosh, and every dog has their own, and I still had 2 extra chew toys I put away for future chewing. So, and they last forever. So I'm just like, okay, they may even still be there for Christmas. And they chew all the time, but it takes them, they're pugs. It takes them a long time. Only the German Shepherds are efficient at chewing. All right. The other thing I bought besides the 2 small pots and the dog things is, while at Home Goods, they had a tablecloth on clearance. My son was with me. He actually found it, and he was like, it was like the perfect red for my kitchen. And it was $8.
Okay.
And it was the right length because I did measure my table. That's a celebration before I went. So I bought it and it's on my table and I love it. I'm so excited. So that was a good find. All right, now for my product of the week. I try to make it something that other people can go get, because I'm like, I could do the tablecloth because it is exciting, or I could do my planter because again, it is exciting, but you wouldn't be able to necessarily go get this.
Right. You'd have to like go digging for it.
Exactly. Right. If you have a Home Goods near you and it still has these things, because every Home Goods has different products. True. So anyway, my product of the week is something that I bought more than a year ago, and I am going to be connecting back to it. And it's my Clever Fox. It's called a budget book. It's $15.99 on Amazon. It's about 7.5 by 5.5 inches. So I always call this like a junior size planner. I made my own little tabs in here because I have no patience. There's no divider. I have to constantly flip through. So I did those when I first got it to break it into where are your money goals. There's a place for your year summary. There's a savings tracker. There's a debt tracker. This is my favorite. There's a holiday spending section where you can just start writing down when you buy something. Yeah, so you remember. I do that in an app, but I'm a physical paper and pen kind of person. So
it's good to check it off.
It does. So one of the reasons that because it's hard to see on the cover. So if you're listening to this, check out the YouTube channel for the visuals. I'm holding up a picture of the Clever Fox logo. They make planners, they make journals, and they make financial tools. So I like that it has the little band to hold it shut, so it's not kind of flying all over the place. It has little ribbons to mark your pages. I add the little tabs to make it easier to find what I'm trying to find in the moment. And I even put these little tabs up here for the monthly dividers for monthly budgeting.
Smart.
I do like the way these are structured. I just didn't have, this is the challenge for those of us with ADHD. We love systems sometimes. we love tools almost always, but we struggle with the implementation. So I use this a little bit until it fell off. Most of our systems will fall off. And it's one of the reasons why in my ADHD-friendly membership, I am offering a course right now. We're in the spring semester of that course. If you want to join it, it's a drop-in anytime course. You can access all past course material and information and then just pick up where we are. But in June, April, yes, in June, the entire month of June, we're going to be focused on money management with ADHD. And I am not a financial expert by any way, shape, form, or means. And I've decided to get out of my own way with that because I think it's more important that we meet each other where we are. And I think me not being a financial expert can help because you guys know I struggle in many of the same ways that most of us struggle. So it's one of the reasons why I'm highlighting this, because I've gotten it back out as I'm preparing for June and looking at this and looking at other tools to support me as I'm creating the content for that June course. So that's my product of the week, the Clever Fox Budget Book, $15.99 on Amazon. If you're looking for something external, visual, concrete to pin down your money in a concrete way. All right, now for our tool of the week. This is really a tip.
Okay.
Practice accepting compliments with grace.
Okay.
So our default is often to deflect, right? It can feel disingenuous. It can feel if somebody acknowledges something about us, our brain will go to all the negative evidence to push back. So for example, if somebody walked in to, let's say, a room in my house that was, clean and organized, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so organized, Patty. I would immediately think, you should see my closet, or come check out this room, or oh my gosh.
No, I'm not.
there have right. Our brain will collect all of the evidence to push back instead of just saying, thank you, right? Or I'm working on it. So thanks. I appreciate you recognizing that. Yeah. Like I've got this area down. I'm still working on a few others, but thank you. I appreciate that. We tend to deflect and if anything, deny it. We won't take it in. So the tip is just noticing when somebody pays you a compliment, what would it be like to accept that compliment? And how can we, this is definitely a muscle. I've worked on this a lot over the years. I learned this, I think, really intentionally was working on it when I was doing my coach training and recognizing that it's almost not honoring the person that gave you the compliment. It's like saying, I don't believe what you're saying, right? It's like, I don't value that what you're saying is actually something worth acknowledging. So I'm deflecting that. And so if you think about it from a kindness place, it can really be unkind to not
to the person,
right? To not accept, and also it can get in the way of friendships. So we were talking about social challenges with ADHD, particularly with adults. If you are kind of becoming known as that person who never accepts a compliment, that self kind of like disparaging can be endearing, but to a point where people will maybe even start being like, oh my gosh, that person can't even ever just like, I can't say anything without them just being like, oh, right. It can be seen as like negative. It can be seen as, so it's like, okay, what would it be like if the next time somebody said, you know what, oh my gosh, thank you, or just like, let's say like, I love that outfit on you. Maybe you think it makes you look heavy, or it's not flattering to a particular part of you or whatever, right? We tend to focus on the negatives, but maybe it's just, well, thanks. Or maybe that's, oh my gosh, that cuddle looks so good on you. Oh my gosh, thank you. I was thinking about getting more of this, I liked it, but I wasn't sure. So thank you. I appreciate that. So accepting compliments, even if you don't agree with them, can increase your own confidence. And again, it supports that connection with your friends. I love this example. I was just looking through my notes and I was like, oh yeah. So if somebody says, I love your hair, and you're kind of thinking I'm having a bad hair day, but somebody like that doesn't normally comment your hair is like, oh my gosh, I think your hair looks so cute like that. It might be like, okay, maybe it didn't take any effort from you. Maybe it isn't the way you normally would have chosen to say. Maybe it was like I had no option but to do this because my hair's a mess. But thanks. Right? Like what would it give you just to say, well, thank you, and move on, instead of, oh, I got up and I had no time to wash it and I just pulled it up in this thing and I can't stand it or whatever. Just thank you for complimenting my hair. So again, the other thing that I read when I was looking at this tip somebody said it can look like you're fishing for more compliments if you say, oh my gosh, I think it looks terrible. No, really, it looks great. Right. So it's like, again, getting in the way of that social connection. If you think about it in those terms, it's just that, how do we pause for a second and just say thank you? And often it's that pause because we want to impulsively jump in and challenge it. Okay. So on to, that kind of takes us into our main topic, which is social skills for adults with ADHD. This, my friends, is a challenge for most of us. It was the thing I always kind of drove home when I was raising my kids, and especially when I was going through coach training, and everything was geared towards kids, especially went through family and coaching children. It was, kids really struggle with this. And I'm like, well, so do adults. And it's the challenge is that if we weren't taught how to do a social skill, we often can't see other people modeling it and then incorporate it into our behaviors. So if you didn't learn what to do when you were younger, you probably still have a lot of those same challenges today. And if you had trouble making friends as a kid and you still have trouble either making or maintaining friends as an adult, there might be something in there that if addressed directly, you can shift the needle. So it's that, what can I do differently to make this outcome more of what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
So I wanted to just highlight that ADHD symptoms can really impact social skills. And I've got a list that I pulled that I thought did it in nice little bullet points to give examples. This is from healthline.com. And they said that impulsivity and hyperactivity can really impact your social skills and create challenges. And this can look like you're interrupting other people. So if they're talking and you're cutting in, and often this comes because we have a thought that fires in our brain and we know it's going to be gone. So the urgency to share it before it's gone is so important, because then we're just like, what's I going to say? By the time there's a break in the conversation, we have a lot of evidence that if we wait, we'll lose that thought. And so it's really hard not to jump in because we know that we're going to forget what we were going to say. So that creates a very unique challenge, but people have very little tolerance for being interrupted repeatedly.
Yeah.
I have to say, yeah, it's really, really hard. We'll finish other people's sentences. So this is another area I really struggle with. When I moved down to North Carolina, love North Carolina, guys, like, not in any way is this a slam, but there were many more people originally from North Carolina when I first moved to Raleigh than people not from North Carolina. And it's flipped. Now there's more people in the Raleigh area that are transplants.
Yeah, right.
It is much more rare to meet somebody born and raised in Raleigh than it was when I moved down there. So when I moved down there, almost everybody had a Southern accent. That's much more rare now. And I had such a hard time because it felt like they were speaking in slow motion.
Right.
Even when I listened to books, like audiobooks, I listened to them at 1.4 speed. So, like 140%. It drives my husband crazy. Like he's like, Patty, can you turn? And I'm like, what? I turn it down and it sounds like they're like, so she went into the car. I can't take it. It feels so painful to my brain. So I am known for jumping in and finishing because I'm just like, let's get to it. But I remember physically feeling that and this is before I knew I had ADHD, when I moved to Raleigh, and I was a teacher, and I'd have these parents come in for and I literally, it was painful. I was like sitting on my hands trying everything not to just be like, yeah, I know. So then they did this. I know. So let's get to the, and especially because, the conferences, you have another parent waiting outside to meet with you. So it's like, let's just sit. So
slower.
Yes, it can be painful to an ADHD brain to slow that down and tolerate you saying the thing I know you're getting to, and I know what you're going to say. So if I just jump in with the end, we can move it along, people. But it's very jarring to the person who has them. Yeah, and sometimes it's even, I'm going to prove it by saying your thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't always go off well. We can speak or act without thinking. Oversharing is another challenge. I worked on that for years.
I still work on that.
Tell you how many social things I went to, and I'd come home and I would ruminate for hours in bed trying to fall asleep thinking, why didn't I just leave? So no, it's funny. I often think of there's an episode of Seinfeld. I know I've used this in my how to use Seinfeld to support ADHD. But there was an episode where the character George was kind of like overstaying his welcome,
Yeah.
taking a joke too far where people were like laughing at first and then he just kept going with it. It was like, oh, if you
Read
just
the room,
ended.
man.
Yeah. And so he kept like, if he was in a meeting at a conference table at work and he said something, everybody laughed. He's like, all right, I'm out. And he would get up and leave. It was like that. And so I called it leaving on a high, like leaving on a win. And I made that an exercise I actually did multiple times, not in a rude way, not like okay, like I just sat down to dinner and I'm out of here, but in a, okay, I just said something, people laughed, I can stop and let somebody else take a turn. And also I would leave. I would do that. If I stay for 10 more minutes, will my future self regret this?
Right. What else is
like, could I just leave? Right. And so it took a lot, and it's not perfect. It's not that I never just like, you just like, I still occasionally do it, but it happens so much less frequently.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, even when I went to the little knit event, I think in advance, listen more than talk. Like I have to mindfully create a mantra to support myself, to remind myself, your job is to listen more than talk.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
it's not easy. I'm not saying any of these things are easy because our brains aren't wired to do these things easily, but they do get easier when we practice them. Some people will intrude on personal space. That's not my challenge. So here's my win. That's one thing I don't do, but a lot of people will do that. And it can be really disconcerting when somebody's like all like up and you're just like,
your personal.
Okay, I want nothing more right now than to get away.
Yeah.
And the person is completely unaware that they're doing that. So that's another challenge. It also can look like joining activities that you weren't invited to, you weren't asked, or you're jumping at in at an inappropriate time. I have to say that's another area I don't struggle with, but it's probably because it's an area that I have a lot of issues. Like I have a lot of challenges dealing with it when somebody does that because I'm not very cognitively flexible. So I think because I'm not somebody that deals with that well, I'm also mindful not to do it.
Yeah.
But it's only because I have such a strong response to it when somebody else does it. So if somebody's like, oh, you're going here, I want to come. It's like, I am not a more the merrier person. I never have been. It's not that I don't like you. It's that I have to now get my mind wrapped around what that's going to look and feel like. And especially if it ends up being an odd number, it's like, okay, now there's going to be one person in the back of the car by themselves. Now, like if we go for a walk and there's 3 people, somebody's gonna be walking behind or in front. You can't walk 3 across on most pathways. So it just changes the dynamic. And I don't deal with that as gracefully as some other people might deal with that. So those are the impulsivity and hyperactive. The other challenges related to inattention can be not actively listening. So somebody's going on and on. And so maybe I'm not interrupting you because I'm sitting on my hands, I'm, practicing it, but I can't stay focused on how slowly you're telling your story, that if there's a point where I'm supposed to add something or come in, I may not realize it because I have glazed over and I'm supporting my brain to tolerate this by thinking of something else that's more interesting. Not that what you're saying is interesting, but maybe you're giving me too many details, which I'm very guilty of. I will give you the whole preamble. There's the thumb. Stop it. Sorry, if you're listening, there was a thumb that showed up. I've got to figure out how to turn that off. Another challenge is becoming distracted mid-conversation. I think that is kind of the same thing, but it could be I'm recording this podcast and something runs by the window. I'm like, oh, what was that? It's like, it's just completely squirrel. We might have that time blindness. We might have that, disconnection between experience and the passage of time. So we're not even aware of how long we've been talking and maybe monopolizing a conversation. It's like once we get going, our brain's all fired up. We are in our element. We can fill this space, but we're not kind of reading the room and going, nobody has had a chance to even like come in with anything. I am like literally, it's like, I'm just going. This is one I really wanted to underline because this is an area that we really struggle with, but we can be judged for. We forget to return phone calls or texts. So, or emails, right? We have good intentions. We struggle with the follow through, the implementation. We also may not show up for social events. So this can be tied to social anxiety. It can be tied to managing energy. It can be tied to anticipating having a negative outcome because we've already had social experiences that didn't end well. So there's a lot of reasons that, or we can forget and just not show up because we forget that we were invited. We didn't put it on the calendar. We're running late and then you get in our head and we're like, well, I can't show up late, so I'm not going to go. there's a lot of reasons for this, but that's something that people will stop getting invited because they miss things or they canceled the last minute and somebody went into a lot of effort to prepare and you're just ditching them. So like, oh, I can't do that again. I'm not inviting them over next time. We also will leave tasks unfinished or we'll finish them carelessly. And this happens a lot with students, but it happens a lot with adults too, where it's like, okay, I fixed that. And it's like, well, okay, I could have done that.
Right.
I was looking for it to be fixed where I'm not seeing the tape wrapped around or whatever it is, right? So like maybe it's like a quick fix that it's like, yeah, it got fixed, but is it fixed the way that the person wanted it fixed? Or, did you give it that attention to detail, which we can really struggle with?
Yeah.
So we don't always outgrow these challenges. We need to target the areas that are getting in our way. And here's my grace note, if you will. Give yourself permission to focus on one area. Not everything. We can't change everything. If you do that, you're going to get overwhelmed, shut down, and just decide that this social stuff isn't for you. That's not true. It's really about how to recognize the things that get in your way and target one thing to practice that feels like you could really benefit or you have interest in practicing it. So here are some strategies. Just, again, take them. If they work for you, leave them behind, drop them, move on if they don't. Number one, know thyself. So understanding how and when and where your challenges show up is key. We aren't very motivated to work on things we're not aware don't work for us. So we have to know about them. We can't fix what we don't know is broken. So just paying attention to what are your patterns. If you have some close friends or family members, those are the people we want to go and ask and say, what would you say is my biggest social faux pas? Like, what is the thing I really, notice I might benefit from working on?
Yeah.
Ask somebody you can tolerate the answer from, right? I always say like who we get feedback from is important. So if you're asking somebody and they're like really negative or they're going to like jump in and like share all of these examples in a way that feels hurtful or judgmental, that may not be the person you want to get that information from. Or maybe you start by asking, what would you say is a strength of mine socially? And then say, what would you say is a weakness? Just ask for it in the way that you can take it. Number two, start with those strengths. So if you know that your strength is kindness, maybe that's where you start building a skill around pausing and let somebody else share. If you think of it as being kind to let somebody else share their story without interrupting them. And then number three, practice one skill. So again, going back to that, don't try to do everything, pick one thing. So if your goal is to listen in a conversation, maybe you're picking like opportunities with groups. So it's not one-on-one, maybe you do better in a group where you can kind of have more permission to give yourself to sit back and not jump in, where if it's one-on-one, you're expected to help with that back and forth. If that's a difficult thing for you, maybe you try it in a group, or if groups are hard for you because there's so much going on, try the one-on-one, whatever it might be. Maybe it's I know a lot of us will ask a bunch of questions and we won't even necessarily wait for the answer before we think of another question that we want to ask. So we're jumping into it and it's like, okay, which one am I answering?
What?
Or maybe we ask like 3 questions in one sentence and the person like
already lost
what
the thread.
was the question? Like was there a question? Like you gave me all this information and I'm not quite sure where the question went.
Yeah.
Maybe you limit the number of questions you ask. This is something I actively worked on for me, and I worked on it with a couple of my kids who really struggled with asking a lot of questions, where I use another like physical concrete thing, or I'm like, I will like literally just do like, if I'm giving myself 3 questions, I'll put out like like my hand, like it's very casual. And then when I ask a question, I might fold one over. Nobody knows what I'm doing. I don't do this one though. I'll do this one. Or I'm aware like I've asked that many questions, so I'm limiting myself to 3 and I have a way to keep track of how many I've asked. Can be really helpful for me. That's just something I've done in the past.
Smart.
And then observe if you are struggling with interrupting, observe others. So again, this is easier in a group situation or even in like restaurants where you kind of like stare not at the people, but maybe at like a picture on the wall or something where you're kind of like looking in their direction, but it's clear you're not looking at them, so that you're not like making anybody uncomfortable by looking at them, but you can hear how that, it's that modeling, but actively listening. So you have a chance to incorporate what feels friendly and comfortable for you to use to help. Because we do sometimes struggle with that. Well, I don't even know how to interrupt. So some of us will go the opposite direction and not say anything because we're so, I'm not that way on group Zooms. I never talk. And all these, like, I do a lot of coach renewal credit things on.
Training.
I have so much discomfort with how to jump in, because there's always like that half second of a pause that, somebody could have started talking and I didn't hear it. So I started, and it just
They
gets
talk
me,
at the same time.
it gets me in my head. I don't
Yeah.
like it at all. So I really never talk on those, but I know for a lot of people that happens in, actual groups, right? So it's maybe you're listening and getting a sense for what would be a comfortable way for you when you really do want to say something. To have a way in can be one of those things that you're just noticing and practicing for yourself. Okay. Tip number 4, be patient. This does not change overnight. It takes time. It takes intention. It takes practice. So capture your progress anywhere that you notice it, capture any wins you have. Maybe there was a night that you're like, okay, that was a disaster, but I did initially notice I was paying attention and I didn't jump in for the first, few minutes. Maybe that's it, but that is still progress.
Yeah.
Right? If you mastered the first few minutes and then it derailed again, maybe that's where you're looking to strengthen those connections by looking for short interactions. If you know, like holding it together for a dinner party that lasts 2 or 3 hours, sitting still at a table may not be your thing. Maybe it's like playing pickleball with friends. Maybe it's, doing something active that allows you to be social, but it has natural breaks and natural flow, and you're not expected to hold a conversation
that whole time.
Mm-hmm. Number 5, ask for help. And this is the last one. If you really struggle to put something in place, but you're also really struggling with social skills, or you have a lot of social anxiety or stress around your social skills, maybe you need the help of a professional. So whether it be a therapist or a coach who can really support you to meet you where you are and help you understand where the challenges might be coming from, or maybe just grow the self-awareness. Maybe you're like, I have no idea and nobody will tell me, or I don't have apparently I know I'm struggling because I keep hitting walls when I try to make friends, but nobody will give me the information I need. And people think they're trying to, keep from hurting your feelings. But if you really genuinely want the information, it's not helpful if you're not getting it. So maybe you need to employ a professional to help you to grow and strengthen your social skills. So that's another thing. But, really think about what you need and then start exploring and interview and, ask people questions to see if it's a good fit to get social skills support. Specifically, if you have ADHD, you want somebody that understands ADHD so that they're not judging and getting frustrated with you, and meeting where you are is what you want so that you can build from there. All right. Oh, that was loud. That would have scared me if I was listening to this only. Sorry. On to the book of the week. The Housemaid. This is by Frida McFadden. Have you read Frida McFadden?
No, is this the one that's getting turned into a movie?
That's why I read it. It's being turned into a motion picture coming out. It's going to have Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Safe. How do you say her name?
Is it Safe Ride?
I don't know. See?
Love her though.
I know, she's really good. I'm guessing Amanda is going to play the wife and Sydney will be the maid, the housemaid.
And that other guy too, that actor.
Yeah, I don't know who the guy was.
He was in that other book turned into a movie from Colleen Hoover.
Oh.
It Ends With Us.
Yes.
So I think he was one of the guys in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very cute.
Of course. They're not going to make it the lead role being good looking.
Did you like it?
I liked it. I didn't love it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. So it was entertaining. I guess my main complaint, and this is a me thing, because people love this book. Like it has really good reviews.
People end up reading it, but I haven't yet.
I got the sequel and I ended up returning it because it was kind of the same. And I think there's 3 now in the series. I think the 3rd just came out.
I didn't know it was a series.
Yeah. This is the first. And that's probably why they're making it into a movie, because if it does well, they'll keep going with it.
More.
But it's just a little, I don't have a lot of patience for things that spoon feed me and like for me it was almost like the haunted house stories where like the signs are really clearly there and she's still like justifying like, oh, it's probably this and what options do I have, and I'm like, girl, turn and run. So I personally don't have a lot of tolerance for that, but my husband and my daughter both read it and loved it, and so I was like, well, I gotta read it. And so then I read another one of her books, The Inmate, which again I enjoyed, but that one's a few years old, but it was the same kind of like
writing style.
But most people love it. I know this is a me thing. It's kind of the slow talking. if you have to like give me a bunch of over and over again, I get really tired of it.
Yeah.
So
it's like a toleration.
yeah. Some things I need you to tell me like people's names. Yes, please keep repeating them.
Right. I'm gonna need that.
Because then I'm like going back, like, who is this again? I'm so bad at that. It's just a real, if I read any of those like saga epic books, I have to read them physically. I cannot do an ebook. I can't. No, it's so hard to go back.
Totally.
And I mean, I can go back and search a name, but only if I remember the names. I'm like, wait a minute. My husband and I are rewatching The Sopranos sidebar, and I'm literally like, who is Richie? And we're in season 6, the last season. My husband just looks at me, he's like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, no, Ralphie, Richie, which one's? I'm just like, I can't hold the thread of these. There's so many characters and they all look similar and they sound similar.
They're all pretty much Italian names.
I literally am like, which one was he? Did he die? Who killed him? And he's just always like, I'm like, this isn't helping my overall, like how intelligent I feel. Certain things I do, I'm like, look at me, I'm good. Other things I'm like, did that just come out of my mouth? So yeah, that's one of these books. I'm like, it's funny because my husband loved it. And my husband, I think of as he is very, very smart guy. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that you enjoyed that. And it was good. It just wasn't like, give me more.
Totally.
So anyway, that's the book of the week. All right, so now I have a quote, not from the book. I usually only quote the books if there was like a profound kind of quote in there or something. I was like, oh, this is very related to ADHD. So this is actually from a writer. I don't know this writer. I probably should have looked him up to see what he'd written. Hopefully it's something good. I have no idea. Jacob Balkovich said, if you think this, again, not related to ADHD, but my ADHD lens was completely firing up when I read this. He says, if you think you're running 10 minutes late, text and say you're going to be 15 minutes late. He says that way, the other person gets one disappointment and one surprise, like pleasant surprise. Because if you feel like they're like, but then if you end up being only 2 minutes instead of 15, it's like, instead of like, you say 10 minutes and then you're 20 minutes late and it's like, are you kidding me?
This jerk.
Yeah. So he goes on to say, most people do the opposite. They say they're 5 minutes late when it's 10, and they end up annoying the other person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that is such an ADHD trait. Again, because we struggle with time awareness. It's also, I call this that kind of like wishful thinking. We're like, okay, just give me 5 minutes. We really are trying to make the 5 minutes, but if the reality is it takes 10 minutes to get there and I'm still standing in my house, nothing's going to make that 5 minutes work. So give yourself the grace of starting to double or triple your estimate and just notice how that works. That is often a strategy that those of us with ADHD do well when we employ. So this quote just reminded me of that, because apparently a lot of people can struggle with this, but I will tell you, people with ADHD almost across the board have blind spots where it comes to time and our awareness of time passing.
Oh yeah.
So give yourself a chance to experiment if that describes you. And if you learn something or you have a strategy as well, post it in the comments for this episode 183. That's it, Becca. I feel like this was a longer one. I hope that you got something that supports you. As with everything that I share, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. That's what we do at ADHD-Friendly. If you'd like to engage in our community and our membership, check it out at ADHD-Friendly.com. Tally ho.